Hi, I'm Matthew Schwartz with Information Security Media Group, and I'm joined by Ajay Arora, the founder of Vera Security. Ajay, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, appreciate it.
So we're going to be talking perimeter security and how in this age of IoT, cloud services, a lot of enterprises still seem to have an unhealthy focus on the perimeter. Why is that?
Well, the reason is because the last 30 years have been built on a paradigm of trying to build walls around organizations. What's happened in the last 8 or 10 years, though, is that the whole notion of a perimeter is completely collapsed. There really are no more walls you can build around an organization. Yet the tools that exist today to solve the problem were actually built for a different problem, when you actually could build walls around an organization. So if you think about 15, 20 years ago, it was actually hard to get data out of an enterprise. If you put an attachment on an email that was bigger than a couple megs, it would just bounce back and it would blow up. Today you have Gmail, you have Dropbox, you have Box, you have OneDrive. There's umpteen number of ways for data to get out onto mobile devices and other things, right? So the problem is that the security as a space, cybersecurity vendors have not been able to keep up with the pace of other technologies changing. And so in the enterprise, unfortunately, they're left with only these solutions that were built to solve another problem. So the whole security mindset from a perimeter standpoint needs to now change to something else altogether.
So what are some of the biggest cybersecurity challenges or risks facing organizations? Because you said they still have a focus, an investment in the perimeter sorts of defenses, and maybe even a mindset. So what are some of the risks they're facing? And then we'll obviously get to how they can mitigate that.
So there's a couple things, because what's interesting is one of them relates to cybersecurity, and there's a whole bunch that actually don't, I'll talk about in a second. So yeah, first of all is getting out of this mindset of thinking about building a wall around the organization, number one, and seeking out other things. So at the end of the day, when you're thinking about what is cybersecurity, how do you achieve it? It's not about building a wall around the organization or protecting the network or even the application or the platform. At the end of the day, you're protecting your information. So how do you actually protect information in a world now with no walls and no borders? You have to secure that information itself and operate as if there are no walls. So the security needs to travel with your data everywhere it goes. So there has to be a shift to that mindset, much more on being able to focus on solutions that aren't building walls, but are actually focused on solving that problem. The other thing, which is probably the biggest concern now in 2019 and beyond, is really not security, it's more about privacy. Right? So, so much so that in the past, it's always about an organization worrying about how do I secure my information, my data, and it didn't really think about the employees, it didn't think about the customer information, and we see that playing out now with GDPR, with Facebook and Google being up, in front of Congress testifying about this. So how do you achieve a balance between securing your enterprise, securing your data, but also having privacy being maintained and enforced for the individuals that are part of your company, for your customer base, for not only inside your organization, but outside as well. And so the implications of not doing that now are pretty severe. With GDPR, it could cost literally millions of euros or dollars every time.
Or billions, depending on who you are.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, sometimes they say up to 4% of your complete and total revenue. Think about that in the context of a Facebook or a Google or other giant enterprises. So the implications of not worrying about security and privacy now are just gigantic.
Well, you said something great there, which amongst other things, which was that it's the privacy not just of your customer data.
That's right.
Which is what we used to worry more about.
That's right.
But it's also your employees.
Oh yeah.
You've got to take care of them as well,
Absolutely.
or else there's massive potential repercussions.
That's correct.
So with all these challenges, how do organizations go about balancing that? And they're not being a perimeter anymore in reality. What are some approaches to that?
Well, first of all, you have to take privacy equally important to your security concerns. So you have to spend money there, right? So we talk about we're sitting at RSA today. We're talking about how many millions and billions of dollars are being spent year over year on security, but no one is tracking what's being spent on privacy. But that's going to change. So there has to be infrastructure and dollars spent on things like what they call the DPO, data privacy officer, projects, processes, the whole framework for being able to do that. So people have to implement these frameworks, training, get the right personnel, the right processes in place, and the right tooling in place as well. The problem is, around privacy, there isn't a lot. of tools that are out there. On security, there's much more. There are tools that will now allow for this new world that we're living without borders and without perimeters. So there's tools, such like that we build. I mean, what we do is at Vera Security is we will allow you to take your information, encrypt it, and put policy around it and have it follow that everywhere it goes. So your employees' information, your customers' information is protected. It can still be shared however you want to share it. You can track and audit access to that data, and then even kill access to that data, even if it's left your organization, whether it willfully left it your organization or nefariously. So, imagine that kind of capability, and with all the breaches that we wake up to every day, data getting stolen. Imagine having the ability to kill that data, no matter what hands it falls into.
If it's gone rogue.
Right, and that's not technology that is futuristic or some magic that will happen. That's technology available today, being used and implemented at customers at scale today. So there are no more real excuses from the security standpoint of why we can't secure data in this new paradigm. Now privacy needs to catch up and the dollars need to be spent to make that happen.
And in terms of the policies that need to be brought to bear, as you said, the rule book is still being developed.
Right.
We've seen that with the General Data Protection Regulation in the EU.
Yep.
One of the requirements was map your data flows.
Yes.
And a lot of people went, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just, part of this really big puzzle, I think, for a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
What are you seeing with customers? How are they getting into that? They're having to apply policies maybe they haven't developed or thought about yet.
Yeah.
Early days?
Yeah, it's early days, but so this notion, especially like large companies, can't do this. Think about what companies have been able to accomplish when they're motivated to make money. Look at what Facebook can do with ad targeting, like in an instant. And so it's kind of a cop-out to say that you can't track your data flows and you can't do these things. You absolutely can. It just will take time, effort, and being able to do it. So what needs to happen, first of all, is organizations are spending money on trying to figure out really what those, for the first time, mapping out these flows. Where's the information going? Who's getting access to this information? How do we be more proactive with that information awareness as opposed to being reactive? These are all solvable problems. It just, the time and effort have to be put into it. It's just before there was no motivation driving it because there wasn't money to be or revenue to be lost, honestly.
A regulator
or regulator telling you to be
we're
able to
going to charge you for that.
Right,
Yeah.
so in a lot of ways, GDPR, what's happening in California with the similar kind of regulations, what will eventually happen nationwide, it's just kind of inevitable now. These are good things because it will move the industry to think a lot more about how do I map out the processes? What are the tools do I put in place? What's the training I need to do for my individuals and my organizations? How do I create a management framework and a process framework around it? So these are all good things that are happening from that standpoint.
And data minimization as well,
That's
hopefully.
right. That's
I found data I know that doesn't need to be there.
That's right, and there's access privileges. People have access to data that they shouldn't. Being more strict and regulated on that, honestly, it's not rocket science. It just takes a discipline and it will take work to get there, but it's got to be done.
Well, Ajay, thanks so much for your time and insights today.
Thank you so much for having me, I appreciate it.
I've been speaking with Ajay Arora of Vera Security. I'm Matthew Schwartz with Information Security Media Group. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.